Hello and welcome to another episode of the eCom Ops podcast. And today I have a very interesting guest. His name is Neil, and Neil is the CEO and co-founder of Voltage Holdings. He has over 17 years of experience in e-commerce with a strong focus on Amazon FBA, and he is hosting a podcast himself, namely a 5% global ranked podcast. And this is really amazing. I mean, he's talking to me in another podcast. So, let's see who is better. No, just kidding.
We're gonna go
Don't worry. It's just I need to always laugh because podcasting makes so much fun, isn't it, Neil?
It is. I actually enjoy it, and I do it for the purpose of enjoyment and conversing with good people like yourself, and just having fun conversations. And by proxy, business gets done. So I think it's kind of a fun way to do it.
Same here. So thank you so much for joining my podcast today.
Pleasure.
And let's talk a bit about e-commerce and where you come from, why e-commerce. Tell us a bit more about yourself.
Well, the non-boring version, I'll try to skip through the
yes, please, non-boring.
No boring. Okay, so I, history of the internet coming online. I dropped out of college because there was the internet. And nobody else knew how to deal with the internet, not academia, nobody. And the people who were just spending the most money were the ones that were figuring it out the fastest. And because of that, I'm like, well, why am I in a music degree in school when I saw internet and AOL chat boards and all this stuff coming online in the pre-stages of dial-up before the real quote unquote internet came online. And so that fascinated me from the very beginning and always wanted to know more about how to do it and et cetera. And long story short, I went to college because I didn't get to go to the Air Force because I couldn't be a fighter pilot. So I'm like, well, dang it, now what do I do? So I went to college, which was just a fallback. Didn't want to be there, flunked out twice and reinstated because I didn't know where to go, which was like, I didn't really want to be a musician because at my age and back then, living in a van down by the river was not cool. So now it'd be cool, but back then, not so cool. And so I'm like, okay, I jumped out, went to the corporate world for a while and rode that horse. Went to Sprint, got into Sprint and Kansas City, Missouri, and where we basically launched some of the first mobile phones for Sprint as the mobile phone market was exploding. So I spent the better part of 10 years between Sprint and then IBM in the mobile high tech, knowledge management and organizations with systems space, really kind of boring, but fun stuff at the time because it was evolving so fast. And that's some of the framework we use now for a lot of the technology and search engines and latent semantic search engines. And pretty soon, a lot of these large language models were stuff that I was working on during the IBM days at the Super Blue computer at Watson. For a year, I got to be on a super cool project at Armonk where they do all the patents. And that was a lot of fun because I had no degree and I got to sit around with all these double docs and talk about all this really cool stuff. And just theorize on things and learn, the edges of quantum computing and the possibilities of super, Cray machines, and just got to sit there and just glean all this incredible information and got to sit on some boardroom seats in some really cool places and got to travel all over the world. It was a lot of fun. But it wasn't where I always wanted to go. I had a kind of a rich dad, poor dad situation going on because my dad had dropped out of high school, went to 2 tours in the Navy and became a mechanic. And so he was my hardworking, suck it up, buttercup dad. Loved him to death, but he was a Navy man. And because of that, he was just like really, strict during our childhood age. And he's not like that anymore. He's an 82-year-old softie. But he was really hard on me. And he was that dad, the mechanic, that go get it, the drive, that work 40 hours a week, to build, go. And that was just his mantra because of who he was. But he knew nothing about money. He knew nothing about finances. He didn't know about business. He didn't know about, he had a core fundamental belief of integrity and work ethic and all that amazing stuff. Didn't know anything about money. In fact, in our house, it was a 4-letter word. If you said money or needed money or talked about money, you were disrespecting dad because he was providing what he could do. He was working hard, and anything else was just, you complaining and whining. So what I ended up later on having was a family member who, through my aunt, got married to my uncle, and he was more of on the business side. He was more of the, entrepreneur. He started a boat company. He, developed all of these things and was really cool because I got to talk to somebody who really understood business and finance and really kind of expanded my mind. And so by the time around 2005 came in, I was really punching to get out and leave and do my own thing. And unfortunately, he died in an ultralight aircraft incident in Wyoming, and I lost him as a mentor during that 2005-2007 timeframe. So by year 2007, I was ready to go. He'd always pushed me to get out and do my own thing. IBM said, "Hey, your job's going to Argentina. Stick around, or you're out." And I said, "I'm out." So I fired the man first, and then they fired me. So I got my little bit of severance. Burned the boats, which meant I was never going back. But I didn't burn bridges. So I did my best to leave at the top and left a lot of connections in place, which helped me later on as I went into business to develop some contracts and went to subcontract with IBM on my own company later on and got a management consulting deal with them. So I had ended up, 10 people under staffing with me doing consulting and high level management stuff through my, so it kind of helped launch me out to do that, which was kind of fun. But I developed an online knowledge of marketing and lead generation. And long story short, it fell into affiliate marketing, which I did really well. But I realized I wasn't owning the product. Like I was owning the middle and I was doing great, but I didn't actually own the end result. And if someone else wanted to change the product or change the mechanism, I was at their mercy. I had no control over that. And while it was good money and I was learning it, I just didn't control it. So I wanted to start building products. So I did some research and I discovered physical products as a component. E-commerce was moving quickly. Amazon was doing a lot of books at that stage, but they weren't doing a whole lot of physical products until they bought a logistics company. Which they rebranded as FBA, Fulfilled by Amazon, which today is the 6th largest logistics company in the world. So with that, they started to launch physical products. And by 2012 to 14, I was launching my first physical products to kind of control the whole brand, if you will. About 2013, 2014, roughly, we hit our first 7 figures in sales. Wow. And from that point on, I was hooked. Yeah, I was just hooked. Yeah. I was like, okay, this is like crack for kids.
What was the product? What was the product?
So the first product was actually a supplement. We had an opportunity I know it sounds cliche, but it was actually we fell into it because my partner lived in Utah, where he's like supplement capital of the world. Yeah. And he happened to be good friends with the senior vice president of a company that does all of Kirkland's supplements for all Costco's. It's their brand. And so they had this overrun of a product that another client had purchased and didn't buy like 500 units of this supplement. And the guy, he said, you just make me an offer and you can have these 500 units. And it was a fat burner product. Yeah. And so we're like, Reed, my partner, just made him an offer. He's like, 50 cents a bottle. And he's like, sold. So we clicked 50 cents a bottle on 500 units, sold them for $19.99. And that was it. We were off and running. So we started more runs of different supplements and built up initial supplement product line on Amazon that did very well. Yeah. So those were our first products, was just literally, we fell into that. And then we started launching additional products after that. We started launching kitchen towels and home goods products and other types of products in the market to just really see where else we could dip our toes into the branding side of the world, including, toys and games. We got into some stuffed animals that did really, really well. And in the stuffed animal game, that's where we developed our as seen on TV strategy that we've been using ever since then, because I discovered that product on an infomercial.
That's really interesting. Really, really interesting. Would you ever start selling supplements again?
No.
Completely red water.
Right. No, well, what happened was, Amazon got to be a big marketplace, as you know. Yeah. But as it really ramped up in 2015, 2016, and 17, a lot of other people got into the supplement world because it's in some ways it was really easy to procure them in the United States and get them into Amazon. And there was a lot of, white label type of brands that could move into the market. And with that, Amazon was like, okay, y'all are messing with the pharmaceutical side of things. You're messing with this too much. And the agencies in America, the 3-letter alphabets, got involved and started to force Amazon to regulate the marketplace more for substances, if you will. Yep. And then those, overarching just put a lot of pressure. And of course, big companies with the, FARM in their name decided that they wanted involved in that too, because the marketplace was going really hard. So when they came into the marketplace, it pretty much just shook the whole thing. We were out of it before that occurred because we saw the writing on the wall, but I had a lot of friends that were selling in that stuff that got really, burnt by the system because, they got kicked out.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar here in Europe. It's hard to start with that, but there are a lot of them. But I think if you have a sustainable brand and you are coming from that direction, so I'm working, for instance, in present with people that come from the pharmacy world, for instance, and they bring up with supplements, then you know that there is some really good understanding of what they are selling, and that works still fine. But if you just build up another white label supplement brands from any producer that everyone else has, and it just put another logo tag on it, then the time is over. But it's still a lot of people trying. So
a lot of people still try that.
Let's see. I mean, you see a lot of trends going on e-commerce, I assume. So what trends should current and upcoming e-commerce sellers keep an eye on?
That's a great question. I mean, we look at the trends, but they're not the biggest indicator, because a lot of times in today's age now, because you've got TikTok and Instagram and these just in time, and Snapchat, just in time social media viral creation or demand creation platforms, certain things can trend extremely fast, but don't have a longevity in a branded product. It could be price point, or just niche, or just a flaming trend that has no longevity. So what we try to do is we look at trends in certain market areas that have evergreen product lines in them. They're less complex. They are smaller per se in size, but have high perceived value. And they have the ability to trend longer over time and are less, flashy than, say, a fidget spinner, right? Which a lot of people would jump on because while they see all the videos on TikTok and they're like, well, I can sell, a $19 fidget spinner. Well, now they're like $1 at the local store around the corner, right?
Yeah.
So following the trends is really about seeing what we call innovation, not invention, in the marketplace, or the differentiations of certain things. So here's an example, is one, the Instapot, right? The Instapot was basically an innovation of Grandma's Crock-Pot. It was it was a faster, easier way and less, dangerous, a safer way to put, food together and have a hot meal made at the end of the day, where you were worried that your grandma's crock-pot was going to burn the house down while you were going to work, right? So the Instapot came around and was like, well, we can do it faster, safer, and, with some cool electronics. And so Instapot was an innovation to Grandma's Crock-Pot, and it took off like crazy and became $1 billion company, right? So because of that, it had a trending interest in the niche that was evergreen, like Grandma's Crock-Pot, but it innovated new differentiation. Well, the next level of innovation that occurred after the Instapot blew up really fast was the air fryers. So air fryers, being another appliance of a similar nature, demographic type use cases, if you will, moms who want to cook or dads who want to cook a meal for the family, have a hot meal, come home, it's good food. Nobody eats out all the time, such and such and such. Air fryers have become a cool way of having kind of a micro oven to do the things you would do with a larger oven. And so those have now gone out into the market and become great innovations. So we're just kind of waiting on what's the next innovation, right? In that space. But those are evergreen, blue sky, now $1 billion companies, right? So we look at those kinds of trends in terms of their evergreen status for products that are in the market, because you want to build a brand that has longevity, right? Sometimes trends will be cool, and sometimes you want to hop on them because maybe you can get ahead of the fidget spinner thing, and you can turn the fidget spinner into something else in toys and games and take all your customers and move them into secondary or tertiary products. You can leverage what we call trend jacking to take a brand that has existing evergreen blue sky opportunity and find one of those trending products, or jump on a trending product really quickly to just gain more brand exposure for the rest of the product base.
Yeah. And there are always such trends, and it's always interesting. The latest trend that I've seen last year in summer, I think, for the kids, not the fidget spinners, but these plastic things where you pop in the plastics and it pops out again.
Yes.
It's so silly.
They always come around.
So damn silly. It's so easy, but the kids love it. They go in the shopping street, and when you're on vacation and you're on the shopping street, and in every other store, they have it put outside, and I want to have this.
Yeah.
So it works, of course, also on any channel like Amazon and so that's of course cool. Let's assume I want to build a new e-commerce brand, and you have a 4-step approach to build a sustainable e-commerce business. Could you guide us through your 4-step approach?
Well, the first thing we're talking about really in trend jacking was one component of it, which is product research, and that the first question, what the heck do I actually sell, right? And the second component of that is, who do I sell it to, right? So the who do I sell it to part, we went to Amazon first because it was a demand capture platform. I discovered it one night, really in terms of its volatility. We had the brand for the supplements, but the one that really kicked off, the one that really showed me that you could build a large, scalable, sustainable brand, I discovered one night when my 3-year-old was up and she needed to be fed, and mom was super tired. And so I'm up giving her, a bottle, and it's 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'm watching a television just clicking through, and up pops this product for this seat pets product that was like for keeping your kids from, heads falling over in the car, and it attaches to the belt, and it's got the little pockets, and it's this cute little animal or whatever. And first I wanted to buy one, of course. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I can sell one of those. Like, you have to change the conditional aspect of your mind to move from consumer to buyer. And that is a conditioning or a training of identifying things you can sell. And so I just kicked in because I was finally getting to that brainwave, that was changing. And I called my partner the next morning and I said, hey man, we got to sell one of these. I think we can do it. There's infomercials, and we went to Amazon, and they weren't doing a really good job on Amazon at all of capturing that demand. And So we like, okay, I bet we can get one of these. So we built our own version. He had a unique little innovation on it, and that was to create it to look a little bit more like an anime than just a straight up dog or cat like the other brand. So we made a little tweak to it, a little stuffing change, a little bigger pockets, a little stronger seams. We just answered the questions that people had about the original product. We built those in and we simply put them forward and said, stronger seams, better fill, looks like your favorite anime character. We sold 2,000 of those in the first 8 weeks organically. I mean, they hit the deck, they hit the market, and it just went. And what ended up happening, we discovered, was people who were going to Amazon from the infomercial bought our product instead at a $5 more per unit because they liked our product better than the existing one they saw on the infomercial. And when we discovered that moment, we learned a lot of things, including organic traffic and other things. So it just has to do with your conditional environment. And in simple terms, if you bought on Amazon, go look at your last 90 days of order history, okay? And just write down all the products that are maybe 50 to 250 that you bought and just say, hey, is that a product that I could sell? And the reason is 60% of all of Amazon's sales from their .com come through third parties. Okay.
Yeah.
So with third party, you got to believe that a lot of the products you purchased are something that you can sell. So step one is to figure out what to sell. So just put a big old list of all your product ideas down. Step one.
One thing that you mentioned, I need to come back before we go step one, the list. Yeah. But you explained how you came to your product.
Yes.
There it starts actually. Where do you go to let this product be built? I mean, you have the idea, you made the concept,
Right.
You make the anime character out of this, and it's sold like hell. But where do you find the producing company picking up such a small quantity at a reasonable price that you can sell?
Well, 2,000 units is actually a pretty large quantity based on the way we do it. Typically 100 to 200 units is what we'll test in the market. But we made a Hail Mary pass to get in front of what we understood was a trend of this product due to the amount of infomercials that were being ran and how poorly that company was doing on Amazon to capture that existing demand for stuffed animal toys of this nature. And there were not but one other competitor on Amazon at that time. And we're like, oh, we can become number two. Like number two can be awesome. And we saw that opportunity to innovate. So we went out to a company in India, literally, and we had them manufacture the first prototypes for us. It only took them like 4 days to come back with some designs that they had done that we'd asked them to do and had crafted some initial prototypes. And we picked out the 2 or 3. They sent us a couple samples, took about 7 days to get there. Once the samples were in hand, we put them to the test. I have 4 daughters. So I gave them those samples and I said, go for it. And I wanted to see how they treated them, used them, how we put them in the car. And they loved it. In fact, they still have them. So
awesome.
So we put them to the test and we was like, okay, we'll take 2,000 of those. Now I remember because I was just getting started and we sort of sold through some of those supplement companies. And at that point, I had run into some business problems due to a partner relationship that went terribly bad, got over leveraged a little too much and had to declare a business bankruptcy for strategic reasons to indemnify myself against what they were doing with investor funds. And I had nothing to do with it. So I went and got a lawyer and took care of all that because I wanted nothing to do with that. I didn't do anything. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't know anything about it. And so I was, legally able to get myself protected because it didn't do anything. But that set me back quite a bit. And so I was running a little short on cash. But when we saw that opportunity, I took a Hail Mary pass and, half of the units were mine, half were my partners. And I just put it on a credit card.
Nice.
Put it on a credit card and said, let's go, man. I believe in this. I'm sure it's going to work. And by God, thank you. It literally worked. We sold those 2,000 units in literally 8 weeks. And we were like, order 5,000 more. Let's go. And so that product line took off really, really well.
Awesome. But we hear something again, guys, that we hear very often in this podcast. All in. Yeah?
I took all in, dude. I was all in.
When you do something, go all in. Don't just try it. Go all in.
Oh, it was a risk, of course, and I had to take a bet on myself at the end of the day. And I felt like I had the good information. I felt like I had a good opportunity. We had sold some products on Amazon already through the supplement, and we're selling at that point. So I'm like, okay, I'm confident that this system sells products, and I see how it works, even as imperfectly as we got going. And so I just threw a Hail Mary pass at it, and it worked. It could have not paid off. But I was like, I'm not terribly risk averse, but I put a bet on myself at that time. And I would always encourage everybody to bet on yourself, because if you're tenacious and with perseverance, you're going to figure it out. And one of the things we did really well in that, because my business partner is a background in finance and a degree and all this stuff. And he's had a lot of business in buying and selling real estate and companies and financial. So he's our CFO. He had a lot of knowledge in how to manage the money and properly do all the things necessary. And that was his bailiwick. So He's like, okay, we need to set up our profit method. We need to figure out our numbers. We need to make sure that we're, selling and profiting off of each of these in a specific amount. And so he set up the first framework by which we created what we call our green light dashboard. And with that, we needed to see certain profitability metrics occur with the product, or we simply wouldn't sell it. And that started the process of defining a standard operating procedure by which we do product research, right? And what the heck do I actually sell? And the component of that, going by the numbers as we refer to it, was making sure it was profitable. Business fundamentals 101. Cost of goods, marketing, PPC budgets, Amazon fees, and everything had to compile into that to ensure we were getting a good net profit to fall out the bottom. And so we set a precedence that we wouldn't sell a product after that, because while we were doing great, we were only making about $7 net per unit. And if you get down past taxes and you pay yourself, there's not a whole lot left in $7 in net profit per unit. You need to sell a lot of volume. So the other thing is, if you sell lower volume, okay, you can sell at higher profitability. So you got to look at which one balances out. I have some friends that are all about volume, and I have other friends like us who are all about profitability. I'll sell less units at higher profitability, and then I'll just get more products, right? Their idea is I take a few amount of products and go really wide through mass inventory, mass, marketing. Mine is I don't want to take on that stress and all those employees. I would rather just go into a vertical 5, 10, 20 SKUs, each SKU selling 1,000, 2,000 a month. So it adds up to 10 or 20,000, and have each of those basically become a brand portfolio. And that kind of established that framework of making sure that each product had more than $12 in net profit per unit. That was kind of our baseline criteria, which then started to set the standardization above $30 and $50 in retail price point, up to $150, $250, $400 now in retail price point, so that we get a higher profit margin. Can't run the business on gut feel, right? You have to run it by the numbers. And so when it comes down to marketing costs now, advertising costs, the fees and storage fees, and these kinds of things that occur in this business model for moving inventory, we wanted to make sure we had enough profit to cover all that and to have a good bottom line. So with that, we changed the framework by which we approached products, which led us to a different level of branding, which also lifted us to the third step, which would be we call don't marry your products, steal somebody else's girlfriend instead. Because there are so many millions of products, so amateurs make a mistake and try to move a product in different brand lines or different categories. And what we learned to do is to focus into kind of one category and go down into an area called a node in Amazon, which is in essence a classification of a taxonomy. Big words, but basically a database and filing information. And down at the bottom is where the brands fight it out. Okay, and the node is where the primary brands deal with each other on Amazon. That would be different categories and different channels. We can talk about that. But long story short, what we discovered was basically in that node is where the brands fought it out. Above that, in categories and departments, is where all the high volume, low profit sellers fought it out. And that's where most of all the Amazon sellers were going. So we didn't want to go there. So we went down and set a higher opportunity bar cost and said nothing below $50, everything 50 and up, because we want this profitability and we want to compete on brand. And there are millions of products in that space. So we just need a process by which we test those products in a brand vertical until we discover the 5 that basically start the brand process. We call it our 5x5. 5 products branded in the brand, selling an average of 25 units a day. 25 units, okay, not a lot, with a minimum profitability of $12 in profit per unit. Okay, what does that turn into? It turns into $110,000 a year in profit. With Prime Day and holidays on top of that, it's about $150,000 expected in profit per million. And we refer to that as a base case in business. That is our base justifiable case of a product that goes to market over a 12-month run rate. I know I'm spitting out a lot of stuff really fast here, but it basically gives us a base case of expectation for that product line. Should it get above 150, then obviously it's doing more than we expect. If it gets to 250 or 350 or 400, we're like, hey, this thing is a banger. But we started to test each of those products by 100 to 200 units in that criteria, our product buy box, if you will. And one of the things that led through that discovery was how Amazon responds to a hyper-relevant brand with a hyper-relevant seller account that only contains SKUs that sell in a specific node. So if you look at it like a very vertical line, it goes from customer all the way through to purchase. So what a lot of sellers don't realize is that Amazon, being a channel of 24/7, 365, this is just one channel talk. We can, again, move to TikTok and other things later, but it's basically a vertical of customer demand in 30 seconds or less by Amazon's own definition. Move a product from intent, okay, from conversation intent through add to cart to purchase in 30 seconds or less. And we're like, well, how does that work in this system? Well, I had a background in this. I built these systems. I built the systems with IBM, and part of the system that Amazon was using was part of the system we built a long time ago. A latent semantic search engine knowledge management framework delivering information just in time so people would buy products. That was Amazon's unique innovation for their base. I'm like, well, dang it, I need to reverse engineer this thing and figure out exactly how they're looking at the data set and how they're determining people's interest in this and how it's learning a customer to data set, a listing is translating into sales. And so I spent about 18 months reverse engineering the product launch strategy that got to that 5x5 so that we could figure out for every 100 to 200 units we test, how quickly the engine would respond to certain, what we call priming the engine, certain segments of things we would do to get the engine to respond to us, certain ways the image and title and bullets and now A+ content and reviews would all impact that. And I launched a framework that got us to top product launches every time we did it. Because we were basically just giving the engine exactly what we wanted. So it's a big river of information flowing. It's also a tree because it's this big tree in data, but it's also a river flowing 24/7. What I discovered was that river, is a slipstream of information. And what most sellers are doing is they're parking themselves just off the side of the river and they're throwing rocks in trying to coax the river to come to them. And instead, they are not in alignment with that river. And as you get in alignment with that river, you go from like 5 to 10 to 50 to 100 to 1,000 sales a day. Because there's a slipstream of them going through that node. Every seller in that node gets a percentage of the total volume of sales for that product node for one product, one node every year. And you got to take over the market share for that node. So it became a mission to dominate that node and how to do it, both organically and with PPC. So I don't even care about all the other sellers on Amazon. I care about the 52 people I have to beat out to gain 20 million searches a year for that specific product in that node, hyper relevancy. Once we learned the factor of hyper relevancy, that's when everything basically started to take off like crazy. And I showed a gentleman named Matt this in 2015 and 2016, and he took it because he had a lot more capital. And in 1 year, he deployed about $1 million into his business following the framework by which I taught him how to do this. And he turned it into a $5 million a month revenue stream in month 9. It went on to do $60 million a year. He went in and did his expertise, which was Shopify and paid traffic after he got that going, added on about 120 million more, made it a 200 and something million dollar a year business. It was in Arizona's top 500 fastest growing companies. And he exited it in 2022 and cleared out about 72 million in sales.
Wow. Awesome. Very great, super cool story. I love that. And you mentioned something, the buzzword that I always listen to is called Shopify. The e-commerce, private e-commerce, Shopify. I mean, you're specialized in FBA. That's one story. But what do you think about private e-commerce, private stores, Shopify, Magento?
Oh, 100%.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I know I talk about Amazon because what it is it's the majority of market share in the United States for e-com.
It is.
So in Europe. If you master that for a product and a brand and move it to TikTok shops and demand creation, viral videos, UGC content, etc., they will fall over 30% of the time to Amazon. Those who don't trust that system will fall over. So much so that Amazon and TikTok now made an integration coming soon so that you could literally buy your Amazon product inside TikTok shop. Like they just agreed to do that. So that's coming very shortly. Because they're like, well, if you can't beat them, join them, right? And, TikTok's fulfilled by TikTok system did not do so well against Amazon and the bigger juggernauts. And so they just said, well, we're just going to use Amazon. So they shut that down. And now it's all about that coming very soon. Very cool. But Shopify, just another platform. It doesn't, it has organic opportunities through Bing and Google and Yahoo, et cetera, if you get your SEO and organic done, but that's a whole nother suite of skills. Takes quite a bit of time to get that done right. Paid traffic, of course, takes a whole nother level of skills. Most people don't understand. They very much underestimate what it takes to acquire a customer into it. And then with Shopify, there's a lot of experts in the field. I know some very good ones, but there are a lot of bad ones out there just throwing up templates and not really understanding and getting the conversion metrics down and the add to cart metrics and which apps you actually put in and how you do your follow-up sequence. There's a lot more technicality to it.
Yep.
I would analogize the two platforms of Amazon and Shopify kind of like Android and iPhone, right? And Apple. Amazon's more like the Apple. I just want it to work. I turn it on. I don't need to know all about all the technical. I just want it to get done. And Shopify is for more of those who like Android people who like to tweak and go in and play with things and want to get their conversions and do the more funnel optimizations and play with the traffic and metrics and AOVs and all this stuff, which are extremely important and very cool.
Yep.
But for me, it's like way more technical than most people can implement, right? And so for that, it takes quite a bit of time to create a practitioner state with those. And it is necessary because it is simply a separate channel of which you capture customer data for the valuation of the company, which is extremely important. We can capture about 40%.
Own your customer, actually.
We can own about 40% of the customer on Amazon by certain mechanisms that are within their terms of service, right? But it means 60% can't be touched because they are Amazon's customer. And I'm okay with that from the very beginning because all I want to do is prove that I can sell the product. Sales fixes everything. And there are 200 million buyers going crazy over there. So I want to get my products in front of those buyers without worrying about tweaking the channel, without paying for the traffic. I pay for Amazon's traffic by their referral fees. Okay. And a lot of people argue, well, Amazon's referral fees are crazy. Well, it takes $20,000 to $40,000 or more to dial in a Shopify store unpaid traffic. Okay. And that's most likely just to get yourself into a break-even position with the product acquisition so that your SMS, email, and follow-up or even direct mailing will make it profitable. Right? So you got to go in and acquire those customers, and most people don't understand that. Shoot, I've been playing on Facebook since the first systems of media buying came out, and I still have frustrations with that dang system, right? And it's never working right all the time. It's got huge problems. It's got big upside if you do it right. YouTube's similar now, TikTok ads and Twitter ads, and you have all these ad platforms and Taboola and all these places you can go at now. But you got to learn how to master each of those traffic sources because the platforms are different and the psychology of buyer is very different. So if I know that if I got an Amazon hub where people find me and that product is a 7-figure a year business, if I take it to TikTok and Shopify, even if I imperfectly screw up any activities over there of trying to acquire the customer on one of those platforms, they're going to fall over to Amazon, which is what we call our halo effect. Mm-hmm. So even in the imperfect process of trying to figure out Shopify and TikTok, I know I've got Amazon running well. And I know that any fall over here is going to end up on Amazon and give the whole business a lift. So that makes it less stressful and a lot easier to go to those other platforms and test those additional products and see what the psychology of a Shopify buyer versus what is a TikTok Shopify person, TikTok shop person going to do when I already know exactly what an Amazon person is going to do. Mm-hmm. And that creates that halo effect. And the biggest component of the question ends up with the valuation of the company. A multi-channel e-commerce company's valuation is much, much higher. Amazon
Absolutely,
will be
because also, let's say when you only rely on Amazon, you are very dependent on Amazon.
You don't have a business yet.
You
I'll
don't
say
have
it
a
out
business,
loud.
actually.
You have a channel of sales.
Exactly.
In
you
your
don't own the
smart
customer. You don't own the customer. You have no influence.
So you must go. You must go omni-channel or I won't buy you. Like we're a buyer. We're looking for companies. We're going into letters of intent to buy companies, and they are omni-channel brands. Yeah. Because I will, unless I see a very clear path from an Amazon-only brand to TikTok or Shopify or Walmart or Wayfair or anywhere else I could take it into the marketplaces where there's customer demand for that product, we wouldn't acquire a single-only channel. And that same thing for DTC, direct-to-consumer on the Shopify side. Great brands doing amazing things, watching them completely foobar their Amazon presence and losing, if you're spending 50, 100,000 or more on Shopify, paid traffic, you're losing 10 to 20 to 30%, depending upon the type of products, to Amazon. We call that found money, right? You're losing 20, 30, 50,000 a month in sales on Amazon by simply not having a presence on Amazon that is found, right? They're buying somebody else's product. Funny story the other day, I know I'm going off fast on this, but a guy in one of our groups posted, "Hey, I'm running out of inventory. I can't figure out what's happening. I'm going to stock out. This is the worst time to stock out." And he couldn't figure out what's going on. And the volume of sales went from like 10, 25 a day to 50 to 100 to 500. All of a sudden, it was just blowing up. And he's like, "I'm about to run out of inventory. This is insane." And number one rule on Amazon is don't run out of inventory. So he was flipping out, couldn't figure out what's happening. His ad campaigns were flipping out. His organic reach hadn't really changed all that much. He's like, "I don't understand what's happening." He's fraud. He's like, somebody's got a coupon, somebody's jacking with the system. This is terrible. Well, after he ran out of product and had a little bit of time to go do some root analysis onto what was happening, he discovered that a competitor's video on TikTok went viral. And that competitor's Amazon presence was not as strong as his. So all of the sales that blew over from TikTok that didn't end up there ended up on Amazon. They found his product and bought it instead. So because his competitor went viral, he sold out a product.
That's nice.
Wasn't that cool?
Nice. That's
like,
nice.
I'm
That's
rooting
really
for him.
cool.
I'm like, okay, well, dude, your product, go start selling on TikTok Shop. That was your sign. Order more inventory and open your TikTok Shop because there's people who really want that product.
Have your brand really on Amazon, have it strong, do everything right, will bring you more success, of course, and even buying in from competitors' ads.
Yeah, we call it the as seen on Amazon now, right? So it was as
Yeah.
seen on TV because now 30% of television ads, even if they don't say Amazon, fall back to Amazon. So if you see it there, it's because someone else is looking for it already in some other mechanism off Amazon, and some other audience conversation they've been having with friends and family, or watched on a television, or saw it on a Facebook ad, and they end up back on Amazon. In our age days, and I'm not that old, but at 48, it feels like a whole twice the lifetime. When the internet came online, it was like, you're not Yellow Pages. You got to have a brochure website, or you're not a legitimate business. People can't find you, right? And so the world has gone forward with e-commerce to, if you don't have an Amazon presence and I see you on all these other platforms, then you're not a legitimate company because I didn't find you on Amazon. So if you're an e-com, you must have that presence locked in, and you must be able to be found out of the other competitors, or the people will simply buy the other person's product. And that's your loss and opportunity right there. If you're a DTC brand, you must get it. But make sure you understand, Amazon's psychology of a buyer is very different than someone who comes from a disruptive marketing YouTube channel, TikTok ad, or whatever, and ends up trying to buy through a website of some kind or another mechanism. Those psychologies, that buyer psychology is very different. So you have to really understand why they're buying, and why some products on Amazon will not work on those front-end DTCs. And while sometimes the DTC shop products will also not work on Amazon. So we do a product research component that looks for all of it. It says, is this an omni-channel product opportunity, not just an Amazon only? Because we want to create multiple channels and build a holistic e-com business that's worth 5-10 times the basis points for an exit, not just 3 times or 2.5 times.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Very, very interesting. I do have 2 more questions. One is because, my big topic is always automation with ThinkSpider.
Automation.
That's our most important thing, of course, in e-commerce that can happen. No, just kidding. How important do you see automation in e-commerce?
So for us, it's the other thing I fell in love with Amazon, buying that logistics company and calling it FBA, now being the 6th largest. It becomes a hub of, their warehouse, their AWD, AGL, and Amazon's own FBA warehouse has now become a hub for all of our other data points. So if you think about it in a wheel and spoke methodology, Amazon becomes the shipping and logistics framework by which we can, take sales from TikTok and deliver them through Amazon, Shopify, deliver them through Amazon, and Amazon itself. So with that system of delivery and automation, I can open up these different sales channels without opening up multiple 3PLs or going to multiple 3PLs or trying to deliver in multiple locations. We have a singular automated system that delivers last mile to the customer. So with that, Amazon's system of automation helps me automate all my other channels. So with the framework, by not moving products and having 3PLs and then Amazon's own warehouses, with seller dashboards and our system and tools we developed and tools that are available, you can basically watch blinky lights on a dashboard and move physical inventory from anywhere around in the world to customer, last mile to their door. So with that, AI systems, automation systems, PPC management systems, seller dashboards and managing inventory and logistics tracking, we can have a single operator in Voltage run 3 companies at scale, right? Because it's so now automated. One person can literally watch and manage and handle manufacturing from, Italy or India or Pakistan, move, freight containers and everything over and shipped in and checked and managed and the whole thing through that system in an omni-channel strategy. So it creates a very simple way to automate most of the business model, giving us the real direction. The last bullet point of us is the platinum principle, the bonus bullet point, which is building these companies that are worth more in the end than at any time during the business building phase. So we are building for 3 to 5 year exits. Automation and simplicity of systems create a very easy sell for a buyer or private equity group who wants to acquire them. And it's like, well, I don't want 100 employees and 50,000 square foot warehouse space. We're like, great, we don't have that. When we come with the operator. So it makes it very easy to acquire these companies when you set them up with that kind of automation, SOPs, and systems of tracking and management that pretty much create automation now, thanks to AI and other things we use.
Good. And AI will be really mighty. It's already very mighty.
Yeah.
Very, very mighty. But I'm really curious how this world looks like in 5 years. When really
last
all the
2 years
systems
have
apply.
changed dramatically. Yeah, a lot of things we couldn't even do 2 years ago, we can do now. Compressing 2 to 3 days of copywriting on a listing down to 2 to 3 hours or less.
Yeah.
It's created some amazing opportunities.
Absolutely. Very cool. Last question for the day, and
Sure.
we are really over time. Typical podcast duration, 20 minutes. So we have now doubled. Oh no, that's good. That's good. I love it. It's very interesting. But last question for the day is, who has taught you the most about e-commerce in your career?
Who has taught me the most about e-commerce in my career? Wow, that's a great question.
Everyone says that.
Well, I'm trying to think that a number of people's, names come into my head. My partner, who's a tactical operator and keeps finding new ways to tweak and do things operationally, which is fun to watch because that's his brain power, not mine. He's the other half of my brain. Getting to know Kevin Harrington in 2016 and then, connecting with him and doing business and having kind of a long-term connectivity. He wrote the foreword to my book. His experience in e-com at the level he's at has been fascinating to watch. It's been neat to see it. He's been, really blew my mind as to what's potentially possible if you really put nose to grindstone. So there's just a couple of names that popped in my head right there.
Cool. Thank you so much. Well, Neil, it was really a pleasure talking to you. I think we all learned a lot today. The 4-step guide you gave us, very, very interesting. Guys, take a look at Voltage Holdings, the business website. Also, listen to the podcast, High Voltage Business Builders podcast from Neil Chua. And if you liked it, just come back to the next episode and like us, review us, whatever you want to do. Just come back the next time. See you soon. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye. And that's it for this episode of the eCom Ops podcast. If you enjoyed listening and would like us find and interview more e-commerce operations experts, please search for eCommerce podcast in your favorite podcast listening app and then subscribe, rate, and review. Until next time,